I'm Doug McKenzie.
And I'm John Ward.
And we're the co-hosts of the ABCs of IBC podcast.
Come join us as we share our unique perspective on the infinite banking concept as the creator, Nelson Nash, intended.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. How's it going, John?
Pretty well. Yeah, beautiful day today, so can't beat that. And,
I know.
I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do, get my cars inspected. So I'm running back and forth.
Doing the adult stuff.
Huh?
Doing the adult stuff.
Yeah. So I don't get harassed and get pulled over to, it's kind of silly. I think my car is in good shape. I take it to the mechanic just like I'd take my body to the doctor if I thought I was in a little bit of trouble.
It's all money.
Yeah, well, it's kind of an interesting idea. We're not going to necessarily talk about it today, but I do talk about it a lot, which is it's everything set up by the government is like it's like a toll booth, right? Everything they implement, they somehow attach a way to grab some cash flow when you're going by. And I was thinking about the idea of them being so creative with the name of, when you get a transponder on your car, you attach a checking account to it or whatever, they call it Easy Pass. I said, well, geez, wouldn't it be really easy if I could just pass? Forget about the paying.
Yeah.
Hey, no problem. You can pay by plate. We'll send you a letter. Don't worry
Exactly.
about it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I was just down in New York a couple of weeks ago, so I didn't have one of I wasn't set up on their toll systems, and I've gotten a few letters in the mail.
Oh, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
the thing, right? There's some places there's no option, right? As we know.
No.
Like in Boston. But yeah, and that's what it is. It's all about getting a little piece of the action.
Well, yeah, it's take. And I mean, to do a little segue into what we talk about, that's kind of one of the things that I like about practicing the infinite banking concept, because I feel like I have this large chunk of, my money, my income that I set aside that's just, it's away from that. It's like pulled out of the pool that can be tapped, right? And it's very, very appealing to me because I see I won't get you started on this, but I mean, because if I get started, I know you'll get started on it, but it is.
You've already got me started.
Yeah, I know. But it's just it's so appealing, the idea that I can have money that's not touchable. There's it's unreachable, right? And by untouchable, I mean by the federal government, but I just did my taxes. I had a 1099 interest form from savings account. I had to file dividend interest forms, long and short-term investment sales, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. There was not a single form that I had to enter for my policies, and I used them quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite amazing because, honestly, everything is so complicated, and I say, it's a common phrase nowadays, at least in my world, probably yours too, but by design, it's complicated. They've got people all frantic, no wonder everybody's on anxiety medication and stuff. It's like, it's ridiculous. When it could be as simple. It's funny, right? We're doing a whole podcast based on this infinite banking concept. And it's because it's a shift in thinking, but it's really, back to Nelson saying, it's ridiculously simple compared to what people are doing with their lives in the financial side of thing, and then reporting taxes, and oh my God, it makes your head spin. And it doesn't have to be that way. And it isn't that way, like you said, on the other part of your life, right?
No, and it really has, it's been like a simplifying of my life. And I know that as I get older and more of my capital and more of my earnings power gets diverted to these systems, I am simplifying my life exponentially more as time goes on, which is kind of a cool thing to think about. Um,
Excellent
and that's actually,
segue there, Doug.
it's a kind of a perfect segue into what we want to talk about.
Yeah, beautiful. Well done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So you want to pick it up from here?
Well, I mean, we wanted to talk about, Nelson talks about in the book, the idea of getting better no matter what, and that
Yeah.
sounds pretty simple, but I can't think of many things in my life that do that, where it's guaranteed, um, and where I'm basically engaging in something that is going to get better no matter what every year. And not only that, it gets better than it was the year before every single year.
Would you say that about doing your taxes?
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Actually, my I think the older I get, my taxes get worse and worse and worse because, well, I mean, it's a function of how things should be. My life is getting fuller. I have more money. I am maybe investing in other things. I have a
Right.
business and all these kinds of things, but it just makes things more complicated. So
Yeah.
no, I would not say that about my taxes.
Yeah, and they
Um,
keep moving the ball a little bit here and there too, right? So if you can step outside when I hear things about, the stretch and if someone inherits an IRA or 401k and how many years you can stretch that so you don't have to take it all as income, the benefactor, the beneficiary taking it as income all at once. So they let you, like, and then they have, these new acts that come out and I've been looking at, a friend telling me about his Roth IRA and I'm like, oh my gosh, even though he's not 59 and a half or younger, he's in his early 60s, like he says, oh, it's complicated. I can't move this money unless I want to get taxed on it, because I have there's a 5 year rule, right? Like I got to
yeah,
leave it there for 5 years. So you tied up your money as if you just put it into one of these annuities that are paying over 5%. Of course, ahead of time if it's 5 years, I can't touch it. But the whole thing on Ross is it's sold so that, hey, if you think your taxes or your tax rate is going to be higher in the future, then you should move all your money over from a traditional IRA into a Roth. But then, unless you're digging into it, and maybe your advisor's telling you, but you're you're trapping your money again. And it's because you're trying to avoid some extra taxes in the future, right? Pay them now on the seed, and hopefully the harvest is more, and it's a, even if it's a higher rate, I don't have to pay. But for some period of time, if you're under 59 and a half, you're also subject, if you take it out before 59 and a half, you're going to get penalized 10%. So it's like, why does everybody keep doing this stuff when they could go into a vehicle like a permanent whole life policy and avoid that, right?
well,
Um,
avoid it. You have use immediately. And it is like, I think, well, we've gone through all the reasons why people might think it's a bad idea, or they might be wary of it just because they don't know anybody else that's doing it. And there is a time horizon, right, with it, but that doesn't mean that you can't use it right away. I found that my ability to utilize my policies, even in the beginning, has has been, exactly what I need. It hasn't been that I wish that I had more money to access. But there is a period of time in the beginning where where a policyholder is going to have less money than what they put into it. But every year, and exponentially so, it's going to grow faster and faster and faster. And Nelson talked about this in the book with the example of a plane, kind of burning through fuel. In the beginning, the plane has to exert a lot of effort, to get off the ground. It has a huge amount of fuel in there. And as it's flying and burning through fuel, it can fly easier and easier and easier. And that's exactly what happens as time goes on with these. And you're going to see consistency that you can't find in any other quote unquote safe savings asset. Bonds have price loss risk. I mean, I would not consider those to be, to me, like a safe asset. The price of those can drop. So there you go, right? The yields can change dramatically. Even savings accounts, I mean, we're essentially at a zero yield there for like 10 years. I mean, you can get an okay yield now in a high yield savings account, but it's taxable. It is typically going to be lower than what you're going to see in a whole life insurance policy, and it's going to fluctuate a lot more than you'd see in one of these policies. With this, you get something that every single year it's just going to go steadily up. And because there's no years of going down, that power becomes very magnified, decades into these policies.
Yep. I mean, he adds on, people aren't familiar with things, the concept of things getting better no matter what. And then he uses that airplane, that's going 10,000 miles and it's already used, flown 8,000. So of course it's getting more efficient. And he says, it's getting more efficient. You can't do a thing about it. And he puts an exclamation point. It gets
Yeah,
better no matter what. And
right?
that's to me always his sort of just sly sense of humor, right? Um, you can't do a thing about it. It's just going to get better. And as you said, there's so few things like that in life. And it's, I think part of one of the struggles we have sometimes with new folks, and maybe even, maybe this is good for uh, policyholders, which is, we compare a lot of things to financing cars and houses. And of course, you say, well, geez, you don't have the money after you've taken all your savings and put it in, probably all your savings into down payment, closing costs, fees, whatever, and you don't have access to much equity, right? It's pretty tied up. They've maxed out what they're willing to do, loan to value. But of course, you got a place to live, right? And I think it's hard to get people to understand initially, anyways, that when I put 20 in, I am making an investment, like I'm buying a house or a car or something substantial, so to speak. And you do get the benefit of those items, but you also do with the policy. Like if someone says they're going to put 20,000 in a year, and let's just say they have access to 10,000. I mean, they have access to that within days if you really needed it, of you
Mm-hmm.
putting it in. So, and hopefully things get, you know, uh, going enough and you keep paying your annual premiums. And the reason it becomes more efficient is because that insurance company has taken, they've kind of been taking a bigger slice of the premiums, and slowly but surely, or quickly, relatively quickly actually, they are de-risking themselves because they are the ones that are on the hook. You're on the hook for the premiums, right? But you're getting something, which is, first of all, you get the coverage. The other is, you're
Mm-hmm.
building with internet banking, you're building a banking system that is going to live on for hopefully, hundreds of years, but generation, for generations anyways. And so I think that's really where we're at sometimes, is that people don't see that. They don't see that hey, I am going to reap better dividends, bigger chunks. And the reason that for that is because they start sharing more with you as they de-risk, as they basically are paid for their risk, right?
Yep.
And that's heavy on the front end, heavier. And
It is
the
heavier,
insurance,
and in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really take that long to be made whole. It's
no.
funny because sometimes I hear, well, people don't like that they don't have access to 100% of the money right away, but they would have put it into something that they would have had access to none of if they didn't get the policy. Like, there are some people that might be putting, all of that to use, but a lot of times people are putting it in like a savings account they're not going to touch, or they're putting it in more frequently, index funds or something like that. And it's like, well, you weren't going to touch any of that anyways. You're now going to have access to way more money than you would have had in the first place. Um, but I love that point about sharing in profits more as time goes on, because that's exactly what happens. And that's a large reason why these things become so efficient as time goes on, and why they get better every year no matter what. It's not just the premiums getting paid in that do that. It's the continued shared growth with the company as they de-risk. Because with a whole life insurance policy, there's a lot more risk to them than with a term policy. They are going to pay you something one day. They're going to pay your beneficiary something, right? That's a known thing. And
Yeah.
so it's a totally different risk profile than what people are used to thinking about with something like term insurance. And we get to the point, decades in, where the 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 profit or return of premium, whatever you want to refer to it as, is going to be is going to be the same as or more than, and starts to become significantly more than any amount of premium you've ever paid in a year.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Return of premium dividends, right? Is another way of saying dividends.
Right.
Um,
And I say that if anyone's new listening to this, the insurance company shares in their profits via something called dividends, but it's brilliantly, I think, classified as return of premium, in that they're saying, hey, we're going to be conservative. We're going to charge everyone more than we think we'll need. And then at the end of the year, when we kind of square everything away, if that was the case, we'll return some of your premium to you, which there is quite a lot of that coming through as actual profits from the insurance company. But because it's classified as a return of premium, it is a non taxable event, which I love. So,
yeah, exactly. That's why it has that tax advantage status uh, via the IRS. Is it's not like dividends with a stock security that if you were to take those dividends, distribute them, um, or whatever, they would be taxable, right? You just did your taxes, so you know that this is how it works. But because they technically look at it as, yes, we know you had a life insurance policy, or well, they don't know, but if you set them up this way, you have a life insurance policy, and it's not well, it was over engineered to
exactly.
catch those short-term actuarial anomalies, right? Is, hey, we don't know. Maybe there'll be a lot more deaths in this year, or a lot more, outlay of cash than we knew. So, for whatever reason, administrative, operationally, and so on the short term that could happen. Long term, yeah, they've kind of smoothed this thing out, and so they know that we expect uh, it could cost this much, but typically we know it'll probably cost us less. But we're being conservative, and if in fact we were right that it was a less cost to do all the operations and lending and investing and fee paying and all kinds of stuff, death benefit payouts, then yeah, we're going to give the money back to our policyholders, our co-owners of our insurance company, but they're going to be considered this like, hey, you just overpaid, and we're going to give it back to you.
Yeah,
Um,
it's classic under promise over deliver, and it's I mean,
yeah,
really, and just to be clear, the companies that John and I write with have successfully underpromised and over-delivered every year for over 100 years. There hasn't been one year where they've gotten it wrong, right?
yep,
So
yep,
that's impressive, and it's
yeah.
very different from the modalities that people are used to seeing on Wall Street, where all the risk is on you and what you choose to invest in, and there's no accountability, and it's again it's just a completely different animal.
Well,
um
yeah, you talked about how we can look at our policies and we can actually see that they're growing every day, but you don't do that. I don't do that. um
no,
I have the ability, and sometimes I do go look in and see what's going on, but it's mostly about what do I have for availability and cash value, and what can I
but
borrow.
because there's trust, there's like a faith, right? I
Yeah,
have a
but it's
faith. I
not
have
an
a faith. I
obsession.
know it's going to go up. It's always going up, just like what we're talking about. It's always going up no matter what. I don't devote any mental energy to thinking or fretting or worrying about that, which is, I sometimes look at my stock portfolios more than I care to admit, because they're all over the place every day, right?
Right, right. Well, that's kind of where I wanted to go with this for a second. Another surprise for you is that some people say that people have an obsessive personality, obsessions, of certain things. But I find that when I'm investing, I am much more observant and obsessive about it. And I had this experience just I think it was Monday that it struck me, because at that point an investment that I had made outside of my policies, obviously an investment, in a week it was already up thousands of dollars. It was up over 10%, right? And I got myself into that little bit of paralysis. I was like, oh, why not take some of the money off the table? Like, I could use some of that money to do other things. Um, but boy, it's on a run, so I don't want to touch it, right? Like, why do I want to get in the way of something good that's maybe, I don't know if the bull is going to slow down and reverse, or hey, did I just get a lucky go here, and I'll just take my chips off the table like being at the casino. Or you have to remember why you're doing it, but at the same time, if it goes the other direction, in a matter of a week, you've lost thousands, you're fretting over that. You're like, oh, at least I would be. I'd be like, darn, if I had just waited another week, maybe I could have bought this at a lower price, right? And that would be great to buy right now because it's down 10%. And I believe in what I'm investing in. And that's the funny thing about the investing world. But at the same time, I went in to two different policies, and I took out, let's just say I took out five figures, right? I mean, it was pretty substantial. And it's amazing that I am sitting with my computer and I'm clicking on take a loan, right? And all I have to do is give them the last four digits of my checking account. I electronically sign it, right? I put in the amount that I want, which is less than the amount that's totally available to me, and I hit submit, and it says, I think 5 to 7 days or something that I'm going to get the money. And I don't have to talk to anybody. I don't have to answer any questions other than just, same things I'd want them to ask me. I think my date of birth was in there too, or maybe even the last four of my social. But regardless, it's such it literally is not even a minute. It takes longer for me to click on submit than it does to fill out the stuff online, and I'm in the money. I
Yeah.
mean, I can just grab the money and then go do whatever I'm going to do, and yes, be the honest banker and pay it back. But it's not at all like, you can't even compare it to investing. This is
No.
nothing like investing, right?
No,
Even
it's
though it's
it,
an
it is,
investment.
and that's I think one of the key.
What's that,
I think that's
Doug?
one
I
of.
think I lost you there for a second. So if you can repeat what you were saying.
Yeah, sorry about that. Can you hear me, John?
Yeah, I can.
Good,
Yep.
good. Yeah, I think one of the key mistakes that people make is to make that comparison. That it is, comparing it to an investment, and it's a different animal. And I think one of the key features, like we've been talking about today, is that you have something that's just always reliably going to get better every single day, regardless of how you use it. So even in your example of when you're taking out the policy loan, which is really easy, and I love that they don't ask you questions. I mean, they give you the right to make your own decisions, whether they're good or bad, about your own finances, which is how things should be. And even when you have that money loaned out, your policy is still getting better every single day as if you didn't take the loan.
Yeah, and I can't, like you've said in the past, I can't get to my next premium. I have three different policies right now, and I can get to those premiums fast enough to load it back up, and then have, every year I have more and more cash value. And that I like to see, right? Because I don't look at it like, oh, I can't touch it. I look at, oh, there's more I can touch. And I also, I'm not touching mine. I'm just leveraging mine, and I'm just touching it in the sense, hey, there it is. Hey, will you, uh, collateralize that for me and give me a loan? Because and boom, again, I'm saying that to myself and to the insurance company through my actions, but I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just doing it, and I can't wait to keep putting it in, which is so opposite of what it feels like. Oh gosh, when I'm investing, I'm taking a chance that it's going to be volatile. It's going to be up and down. The ups are great, but the downs sometimes outweigh the ups. And this is a thing that only goes up,
Agreed.
which is really strange. Only gets better.
It only gets better, and it only goes up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, those go pretty hand in hand.
Yep,
That
yep.
sounds good to me. Yeah. All right. Well,
Well, this was a fun one to talk about.
yeah. Yeah. Well,
You got anything else to add, John?
I think that's pretty much it. So, yeah,
All
I
right.
like what we shared today. So that was fun.
Good stuff. Nice
All
chatting with
right,
you as
everyone.
always.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk with you next week,
Have a good
and
one.
reach out if there's anything we can do.
Anytime.
Okay. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, John.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the ABCs of IBC.
If you enjoyed listening, please hit subscribe and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen. It really helps. See you next week.
Bye.